Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Purposeful Wisdom Podcast. I am Dawne Christine.
And I am Dee May.
And on today's episode, we have a very special guest, Ashley Rainsberger. And I just want to give you guys a little info about Ashley. She is an intuitive coach and energy healer, as well as the chief executive weirdo of the Weird Women's Mind, Body, and Soul Club. She creates a space for weird women of all backgrounds to hang out and connect on a spiritual and metaphysical topics. And after serving clients for several years in her coaching business and struggling to find her niche, Ashley decided to create a space where her love of weird topics and her desire to support others' healing journey can come together. Ashley interviews magical, weird experts from all over the world on several topics, ranging from sound bath healing to out-of-body experiences to even Bigfoot. So she loves what she does, and we're excited to have her on the show today. Welcome, Ashley. Thanks for being here.
Yay.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I appreciate that you want to spend this time with me, and I'm excited to chat.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. We love this. The first thing to open it up was we're so curious. Dee and I were talking before the show. We're like, oh my gosh, how cool is it that she brought two worlds together? Really? So what inspired you to create a space for people to embrace the weirdness of the world while also helping them on their healing journey? Like, how did you come to bring these two worlds together?
Thank you. That's a good question. I have, first of all, always been really interested in weird and woo and spiritual, metaphysical topics. I have experiences with, my own stories with extraterrestrials and just near-death experiences have always been really fascinating to me. I've always been, I would say, because, I grew up, like most of us, I grew up in a really Christian family. And so I always kind of questioned that things were exactly the way that, a certain people would say that it was. Like, I just was always curious and always questioning and always really interested in topics that were sort of outside what was mainstream. I did all the things that you do. I got married and had babies and went to college and I just never really, first of all, never really felt like I fit in. I always felt a little bit different. And I always really struggled to have a normal job. Like, I always struggled to just feel like that could be it for me. And so I started reading books on personal development and coaching, and I came across You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. And that really interested me. I know, it's so good. And that really introduced me to the idea of coaching. And it really introduced me to the idea that, hey, like, if you want a different life, then go create a different life. Right. And so I started looking for coaching certification programs and that kind of thing. I ended up getting certified. And I've had my own coaching business for the last almost 6 years. And that has been both really incredible and really difficult. I've had lots of ups and lots of downs. I've had times when I've been really successful, and I've had times when it's been really hard. And I really just decided, I think part of why I struggled so hard is I did struggle to pick a niche. I struggled, do I want to be a life coach? Do I want to be a business coach? Do I want to be a health coach? Do I want to be a spiritual coach? All these things really felt hard to me, to just stick with one thing. And I was like, what if I created something where I could serve people and really help them, but I also got to explore whatever topic that I really wanted to explore, whatever I felt like exploring. And so that's kind of how the Weird Women's Mind, Body, Soul Club was born. I get to go into this membership. I get to talk to people who are experts in all these really different, weird, awesome topics. We get to talk about spirituality and religion, and we also get to talk about things like extraterrestrials and Bigfoot. And it's just such a cool place to be myself and to not feel weird around other people, and also to just explore whatever I feel like exploring, so I don't have to feel like I'm stuck in this box. Right. If that makes any sense. Did I answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love it.
We
Yeah.
all hate the box, right? Throw that box away.
Yes, we all hate the box.
What is your favorite weird topic, Ashley? Like, what's the weirdest of the weird?
Um, yeah, that's so interesting. I would say I'm super interested in all things extraterrestrials. And I would also say I'm super interested in like psychedelics or plant medicine. I think is really fascinating.
Oh wow. Like I think literally you hit on the two topics that Dee and I were like, we totally want to jump in with this stuff because
Yeah.
like I will tell you here, we're weird with you. Like both of us believe in
This
ETs.
weird
We're
right
both
here. This is how
fascinated.
weird.
Yeah, like she has
Yes,
weird
the crown.
she showed me and I was like, oh my God, I need a weird crown too. Like, what? This is so cool. Like, embrace it, right?
I
Because these
love it.
are things that are so. I mean, I'm a huge like ancient aliens person. I
Yeah.
believe we are not alone. I'm fascinated with psychedelics. I really feel there's a connection to healing the mind with psychedelics. So I would love if we could discuss this stuff today because like Dee and I, we're just like so excited about this. We really are.
Yeah, I'm happy to go into anything you want to go into. It'd be super fun.
Awesome. So what made you curious about psychedelics? And if so, have you ever had a psychedelic experience before?
Yeah, that's a really good question. First of all, I've always been, and I've said this in a couple other places, I've always been really jealous of like spiritual people who have these really cool experiences, like people who are psychic or they're mediums or they're like highly intuitive. Like I'm an energy healer. I'm sensitive to energy. I consider myself intuitive and empathic. That's why I'm so good at coaching because I can pick up on things that normal people probably wouldn't pick up on or be brave enough to pick on. But I've never had like, like I don't identify as a psychic or I don't identify as a medium. I can't talk to dead people. And I've never had like a near-death experience. Like I've never had those really like concrete, like visceral experiences when it comes to just being like really gifted in that way. Some people are just naturally gifted, just naturally born that way. So I've always been a little bit jealous. And I'm trying to think like when I don't even know if I could tell you when I first started hearing about psychedelics or specifically like mushrooms. But I just remember thinking, well, that is a really great way to have that very visceral experience, to have like a metaphysical experience, to have like that really connected experience, even though I'm not a psychic or I'm not a medium or I'm not like really gifted in that way. And so I had the desire for me to just start connecting with plant medicine, specifically psilocybin, specifically mushrooms. And so, yeah, I started experimenting. And
Wow. And what was that like for you?
yeah, I think at first it's always really scary in the beginning, right? Because if you've never had that experience before, people are really nervous. You hear a lot of people talking about having bad trips. I wanted to be safe and I wanted to take it slow. I wanted to just really ease into it. But it's the experiences that I've had have been really healing. They've been really intentional. They've been really like eye-opening and helping me like see myself and see like the ways in which I get in my own way. And I've had one really intense experience that I think another person might identify as like a bad trip, but I don't believe in bad trips. What I would say is it was just a really intense experience. And since I knew enough and did enough research to know what happens when you're having a bad trip, I really leaned into it and I didn't allow it to like scare me away. So I guess long answer short, it's been really healing for me. And so I really believe in it. And I think that people who feel called to have those experiences should just move slow, be intentional, let the universe know like you want that experience and do your research, be really educated about it.
I love that. I've been fascinated with psychedelics for many years. Myself, personally, I've never experienced with psilocybin. I started out with ketamine. And
Mm.
I researched for years about the benefits of ketamine and psychedelics when it comes to trauma healing, when it comes
Yeah.
to literally rewiring the brain, and kind of decluttering those old belief systems that are stuck in the subconscious. So for me, I've been researching this for years, and I did not have a psychedelic experience with my ketamine at all. It kind of worked itself in the background. So that's why I'm so fascinated about this, because I know psychedelics take it to a whole other level where you are connecting with your higher self, and you are really trying to understand what's standing in your way, getting over your fears. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking me. You don't get to talk about it a lot because it's not like talked. It's becoming more mainstream and people are starting to have conversations about it. But it's not talked about enough. So
I agree with that.
Do you feel like you reached your goal experience with the mushrooms?
I think kind of like how we practice like in spirituality, like detaching from an outcome or like detaching from an experience, you have to do the same thing with plant medicine. You have to sort of trust it to guide you, and you have to trust that it's going to give you the experience that you need, not necessarily the experience that you want. And it's so helpful to be really intentional, like to journal beforehand and to really know internally, like, what am I hoping for? What do I really desire out of this experience? And when you're having the experience, to be really intentional about focusing on that thing, asking those questions, really sitting internally with the medicine and sort of letting the medicine guide you. But also, like, it's gonna do what it's gonna do. And it's gonna give you what you need, whether you like it or not. And so it's the more you go into it allowing and not controlling, the better experience you're gonna have, which is why people do experience what you call bad trips, because when you start having those feelings of fear, or you start like kind of freaking out about like what you're experiencing, the more you lean into that fear and the more you try to control the experience, the worse it feels. And so it's very much like with trying to have the experience that you want in life. We go into it with an intention, we go into it with a plan, but the more you surrender, the more you let go, the more you trust that it's like opening up for you, like what needs to open up for you, like the better your experience is going to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We kind of had a similar discussion this morning, and
Yeah.
around me in the last like 2 or 3 months, the letting go of the how has been a really big energy. So I think that's kind of similar to what you're talking about now. It's just having that
Yeah.
intention, but letting go of the how it arrives in your life. 'Cause it's
Exactly.
going
Go
to in the
into it
most
like
beautiful way.
trying to Exactly. Like go into it, with like knowing step one, knowing step two, but just know that like step 3, 4, 5, 6, it's going to change. It's just going to change. And we
Yeah.
just have to like be okay with the fact that it's going to change.
Yeah.
And
I
I've
think
read,
that's,
I've watched many documentaries about psychedelics, and I've watched, I've read books about it. I've listened to podcasts about it. And even what they define as a bad trip,
Mhm.
sometimes it's necessary. Like what I've heard, read, all these experience from others is if you are meant to have a bad trip, you're meant to have a bad trip. Like,
Yeah.
and it may not be out of fear. It may be that the universe is showing you, spirit is showing you what exactly you need to overcome in your life in order to let go of those things, because it is, attachment. People are still attached to these things. So having that experience, I think whatever's meant for you to experience while you're, under plant medicine is what you're meant to experience too.
Absolutely. And it's trusting that and knowing like the only reason you're experiencing a bad trip is because you're not letting go of control. I mean, that's really like, that's all it is. It is the medicine trying to show you something and you not wanting to see it, not wanting to feel it. And as soon as the medicine feels that resistance, that's when you start to feel like, well, I got to control more, because if I control it more, then I'll feel better. But that's not true. The more you try to control it, the worse you're going to feel. It very much mirrors like what we experience in life, but just at an extra like sensitive level.
Wow.
That's so
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
what would you recommend
Mhm.
to people that are looking to try plant medicine?
I would definitely recommend, do your research. I think it's very helpful to have a trip sitter, somebody that can be with you, especially if you're feeling extremely nervous or anxious. Do your research on like harm reduction, so that you, again, just can be as safe as possible. And just be very intentional about it. Don't do it because you hear people talking about it and it's cool. Do it because you have felt called to do it and it feels like the right time in the right space. Be in the best headspace possible, because I think that really helps, like having a good experience. And in my suggestion would be to just start slow and small and intentional, and just see where that journey takes you.
And Ashley, what can people expect? So, depending on, I'm assuming on how many milligrams you consume of the psilocybin, or whoever whatever way people decide to have a psychedelic experience, what would be an average time frame for people? So how long are they under the influence of this plant medicine? What does that journey look like? Are there any side effects that people should know about coming down from it? What would you tell people with that?
I would say expect, and this is just, I'm just speaking from my experience, and obviously everybody's experience can be different. I would say expect 6 hours, so you you want to have a full day, a full, evening dedicated to it. You probably don't want to have a lot planned, or if anything planned the next day, because once you're done, you're going to be like, whoa, and you need that time to integrate, to really maybe process and journal and, feel what you're feeling. Um, I would say, yeah, just allow as much time as possible. And sorry, I missed the other part of your question.
If there's any side effects that
Oh yeah,
people
yeah.
should know about.
I would I noticed some like nausea. For me, that's what it was nausea. So I would definitely eat beforehand, but give yourself time to digest before you take the medicine. And if you do feel nauseous, it just helps to eat a little bit, but not very much, and eat something very clean. Because I remember I remember like trying to eat this is so funny, but I remember trying to eat some lemon bread because I was feeling really nauseous and I was having a not good experience, and I wanted it to go away. And I thought, well, if I eat this lemon bread, then it'll fill up my stomach and the trip will pass faster and I'll feel better. And I couldn't, it tasted disgusting. Like it did, because I don't know if it was because like it just was a processed food, or what was happening, but it just tasted dry and it tasted really terrible. And I was really nauseous. And so I would just say, drink as much water as you can, eat something, but have some time to digest. And then if you do eat while you're experiencing the medicine, just make it something really clean and really light, and drink lots of water.
I've also heard to not look into mirrors. Is this true?
I would say definitely don't do that your first time. It's a very weird, and I've done it because I'm a rebel and I do everything they tell me not to do, but it just looks very strange. And it's especially like if you're very self-conscious, or especially if you're very self-conscious about like your face or certain facial features, it's going to exaggerate everything. And so it's difficult to look at because it doesn't feel like you, and it makes you very self-conscious. So it's just not, yeah, it's probably not a good idea.
That's so
Okay.
interesting. I
Good to
wouldn't have even
know.
thought about that.
Yeah.
That's so weird, Ashley.
Yeah. I know. It's so weird. It's so weird.
I love the word weird. I do. I know I sound like a complete dork, but it doesn't apply to any of the rules. Did you realize that? Like the I before E, except after C, blah, blah, blah. No, weird
That's
is its
true.
own weird thing. Yeah, it is like I will
I actually hadn't picked
be
up on that. I
before
love that you said
I,
that.
and I don't care if you like it or not. I am weird. So
And
Yes.
people have had such a weird reaction to the word weird, because a lot of people, because I every once in a while, like I'll post in groups and ask for weird experts, and other people will say like, well, I don't think that it's weird, or I don't know that weird is like the best word. Like they feel like there's this negative connotation to the word, and that's part of like specifically why I chose it, because I want people to, I mean, if you really look at it, we're all weird. Every single
yeah.
last one of us has
Yes.
something weird about us. And so I am aware of that, like when I created the membership. What I want people to do is sort of embrace it and like embrace what's weird about you and own that you're weird, because you are weird in your own unique way. And if we could just really embrace that magic, I think it would just be really helpful in all things, life and business.
Yeah, I
Absolutely. I
agree.
couldn't agree more. It's that extra little something that makes us uniquely apart. We're not supposed to be cookie cutter and everyone's the same. Like
Yeah.
that would be weird to
Yeah.
me. Like having, like robots. We're not robots, we're people with emotions and we have different interests and different backgrounds. And like to embrace that weirdness, like everyone
Yeah.
is weird. So why not like embrace those beautiful, weird parts about yourself? I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I used to think it had a negative connotation too, because I've been called weird a lot during my life because, and
Mm,
I'm going to quote I can't remember her name, but the girl from Beetlejuice, I myself am strange and unusual. And
yeah.
so I just, like I just finally started saying, I embrace my weirdness. I wear my weird crown proudly. And then I'm a
Yeah.
twisted wire artist. And so one day I was just like, I should totally have a weird crown because that only makes sense since I say that all the time, so that's how that came to be. But yeah, I think we're all weird, and like I totally fully embrace my weirdness. I think it's magnificent, and it doesn't
Yeah.
seem like an insult to me anymore. It seems like, hell yeah, I'm
Exactly.
weird. You're damn right I'm weird.
Right.
Exactly. When I go
And
live in
have
my
fun with
membership,
it.
yeah, exactly. When I go live in my membership, the first thing I say is, "Hey, weirdos," and
Love it.
and they know like it's an endearing, like loving name. Like that's that like I want them to own that weirdness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
So you brought up aliens, therefore we must talk about aliens. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about aliens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. So when I was about 15 years old, I had an experience. I had an experience where, you know how, oh, I don't know, I'm trying to think like how to start it. I had an experience where it felt like I was in a dream, but I wasn't in a dream. I woke up sort of like in this altered state, and I was on like a slab that was like leaned up against my bed, and there were two beings. There was a being at the top of my head, and there was a being at the bottom of my head. And I was terrified, obviously. I couldn't scream, I couldn't speak. There was like no noise coming out of my mouth. But I don't know if I could telepathically communicate, but they were telepathically communicating with me. And they were just calming me down, letting me know it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. They didn't really tell me what they were doing, what was happening. But it felt like somebody was doing some kind of work up near my head. And then the next thing I knew, it was morning and I was in my bed and I was fine. In that same house, there was also an instance where I saw a huge saucer like out, it was my grandmother's house out in the back above some trees. So I've had that experience, and I've told people in my life about that experience. They always ask me, do you think that you were just dreaming? And the answer is no. Like I wasn't dreaming. Like I was awake. I was awake and I was in the space where I went to sleep. It felt very real. It felt very visceral. Like you just know, right? You just know if you're dreaming or not. So I had that experience. I've also had some weird experience with like sleep paralysis. Have you guys ever heard of sleep paralysis? Is like when your body is asleep but your mind is awake. So ever since I was 15 years old, I struggled with sleep paralysis. And it was a very like terrifying experience until I got to be like in my 30s. And then I realized it was something that other people experienced too. And I kind of learned more about what it was. I stopped being afraid of it. And then I stopped having the sleep paralysis. Well, there was an instance not too long ago where I had the sleep paralysis again, and it allowed my body to astral project. Have you heard of astral projection?
Yes.
There's like way too many weird topics in today's episode.
Oh no, I love it.
Oh,
Bring on the weird topic.
oh,
So I astral projected, and I guess I'm bringing this up because it just ties into another experience. I astral projected, which I knew what it was because I'd really always wanted to be able to do it, and I had done some research on it, and I had practiced doing it before with no success. Well, this time the sleep paralysis led me into the astral projection, so I was having an out-of-body experience, and I was like, where do I want to go? Where does my consciousness like want to float to? And I was like, I want to go hang out with some extraterrestrial beings. So I astral projected to this space, and all I can say is I was with these beings, and they were all like sort of sitting around something, and they all looked at me, and they were like, they didn't say anything, but again, it was kind of like a telepathic thing. Like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? You're not supposed to be here. Where did you come from? And it was very much like I was not, like I wasn't, they weren't mad, but I wasn't welcome. And so they sort of like pushed my energy back. And then I was back in my body. And those are the in-person experiences that I've had with extraterrestrials.
Wow. So what did they look like?
Yeah, I want to know.
It was pretty, it's pretty close to what you normally imagine, like the gray green kind of big head, big eyes, like sort of typical appearance.
Were they tall or short little ones?
It was hard to tell because I didn't have anything to compare it to. And so like it wasn't as if we were in like a room. It was just my consciousness was sort of projected to a space and I could see them, but there was nothing to compare to like how big or small they were. They seemed to be about my size, about human size.
Okay. Did you recognize like a planet?
Yeah, I could have. Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
Did you like recognize maybe like a planet, or were you in a complete other dimension? Like, how would you describe your journey? Like, you astral projected and then boom, you were in front of aliens, or like, did you?
It's so. This is why, I want to. Astral projection is something that I like want to master, because I think the more intentional you are, again, it's like the better experience you have. Since I had done it accidentally and I didn't know what I was doing, I just sort of projected my consciousness without, planning or without thinking like, well, where should I go? I just was like, I want to hang around with some extraterrestrials. And so it just sort of took me somewhere. And I have no way of knowing where it took me, if it was a different planet, maybe it was Earth, maybe it was someplace they were hanging out on, I don't know. But it just sort of took me there and then shoved me back. So it was weird.
It's so interesting that
Wow.
you didn't have control over the pushing awayness. Like you weren't like, oh no,
Yeah,
I'm
I
hanging
found that
out. What are
interesting
y'all
too.
doing? What are we talking about?
Yes, I found that really interesting too, and that they were, because people talk about, if you've ever heard of remote viewing, there's a lot of like government documents now that talk about that we're aware of, that talk about training people in remote viewing, where you can project your consciousness somewhere. And people are unaware of you, right? Because they can't see you, because it's just your consciousness. But since it was with a group of extraterrestrial beings, they have that awareness that humans don't have. And so they have the ability to be like, nope, that's not wanted. We didn't invite you here, and to like push my consciousness back. So yeah, I thought that was interesting.
That's
Wow,
an
and here we
interesting.
are. We like invite them. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like the funny thing to me. It's like, at least for me, I've been trying to communicate with aliens for years. Like I have my little laser light, and I'm just like, forget it. I'll go outside and I'll look up and I'll be like, like I'm fully like But for like, we invite them, and then they're just like, nope, you gotta go.
Yeah, we didn't ask you to be here.
So do you think that you said, like it's aliens, right? And they're just like, they have that
Mhm.
consciousness, and you compared it to the human consciousness. Don't you believe that? I'm going to go really deep now because this is me.
Yeah.
Don't you believe that we're capable of that? We just don't embrace that gift, and we choose not to use it.
Yeah, I think it's tricky because I think we're certainly capable of it. And I think that we are not aware yet of how to really like nurture those gifts and to really be as powerful as we were created to be. If I haven't done enough research to know a lot of specifics, but like theory, one theory that I've heard is that, the human race was created by extraterrestrials. And it started off being created by like some dark energy extraterrestrials, and then some light energy extraterrestrials got involved to make sure that we would evolve towards the light. Um, I think that we are capable, that we are powerful, and that there's a lot of energy that holds us back. There is a lot of energy that doesn't want us to be as powerful as we are. So I think that we have to remember. I get frustrated. I'm trying to think how I want to say this, but I get frustrated with the spiritual community because I feel like sometimes we are blamed for not fully embracing our power when really there's a lot of energy we're not aware of that does hold us back. And there's a lot that we could do that we should be doing to really exercise that power, but it's not all our fault. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of room for us to grow and to evolve. There's a lot of power that we could tap into that we haven't tapped into, and to just be aware that there's a lot we don't know. Like there's a lot we're not aware of. There's a lot that is sort of pushing against us that we're not fully aware of. And we just have to continue, keep trusting and keep stepping into the light and keep having these conversations, and keep, remembering that we are more powerful than we are allowing ourselves to be.
I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I believe that 100%. So what would you say to someone who was wanting to explore that part of themselves, but is afraid of what they'll find, afraid of what they'll be able to do, create, be, have, whatever?
Yeah, I think, I really am a believer in taking it like one day at a time. I think that we get really overwhelmed when our energy is very like forward focused, like, oh, I want to be this and I want to do this and I want to have this. And our energy stays so much like in the future, and it gets really stuck on everything that we don't have that we want to have in the future. And if we could just practice pulling our energy back into now, like back into the present moment, back into the present body, and what you're so grateful for and what you're so proud of that you've already done, and just ask yourself, what can I do today? Like, what am I responsible for today? How can I be more powerful today? And just let that be enough, and ask yourself the same question tomorrow.
Yeah, that's great
Good
advice.
strategy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really great advice. What other kind of weird things would you
So,
like to discuss with us today?
Man, that was a lot for one day. we,
what is something no one knows about you that
Yes.
might be, like something that no one else would know that you're into, or kind of out of the box for your character? What would it be?
Hmm. That's interesting. Not too long ago, I would have said the psychedelics. Like that was something that I haven't, that I've been exploring for the last couple of years. That, I mean, even now, like a lot of people don't know necessarily, because I'm not like talking about it all the time. I'm just more open to talking about it. But yeah, I think like I'm just part of why I started like the Weird Women's Mind Body Soul Club. It wasn't just for other people. It was so that I could embrace my weirdness. And it was like it was like the permission that I needed to like start talking about extraterrestrials and start talk about, really talking about healing, and really talking about, exploring like alternative forms of medicine. And so just, I mean, I think like what we've talked about today, like a lot of people who know me in real life, they don't know, they've heard me say like bits and pieces, but they don't really like, they haven't heard me expand on it. So like even having the conversation today, it feels good. It feels good to talk about that stuff and be more open about it and be like, yeah, I'm weird. And this is the stuff that's happened to me and that I explore and that I find interesting. And I want to make a whole career out of it.
Yeah.
I
So
love
what
it.
would you say to
Yeah.
people who want to embrace their weirdness, but they're afraid of what their family, friends, employers, even if they happen to see a podcast where they're talking about it? What would you say to them to encourage them to go ahead and
Yeah.
explore that?
Yeah, I would say that that's totally normal and natural and logical. And that sometimes it's true. Like the reason that you feel that is because it's not safe. Like there are places where emotionally it is not safe to be open, to be vulnerable, to talk about these weird things if it's not, warranted, if nobody is asking about it. And so just know that you're not necessarily hiding yourself, you're just saving that part of you. You're saving that part of you for the people that deserve it. And so it's okay if you're not like going around saying, hey, I'm weird, and like walking up and down the street with purple hair and all the whole thing, right? Like that's totally okay. But like in order to like be your best self and to be your weirdest self and to feel really comfortable with who you are and what makes you magic, it's so important that we connect with other people who are working on the same things and who aren't going to judge you and who aren't going to shame you for whatever, how big or how little weird you think that you are. So find your people and have conversations and just practice being open with people who it feels safe to be open with.
Right, right. That's a great idea. And it's a rewording of something I like to tell people, because I had a friend one time who is very spiritual and very open spiritually, and she felt like she had to tell everybody all the stuff every single time,
Yeah.
or she was being
Yeah.
inauthentic. And I told her, I said, you're not being inauthentic by not having that conversation with everyone. Sometimes you have to pick
Yeah.
your audience, so
Yeah.
it's same thing, different words. So I love that you said
Yeah.
that.
I like to remind people like be really, be intentional. I don't want to say picky, but be intentional with who you share your energy with,
Mhm.
because your energy is precious. And there are people who are good at receiving it and there are people who are not good at receiving it because they're still afraid of their own weirdness.
Yeah.
And so that has nothing to do with you. Save your energy for the people that it just feels most safe to do so with.
Yeah, that's great
I
advice.
love that. I couldn't agree more. Yep,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with that. Time is precious, your energy is precious, you yourself are precious, and you have to just find people that you connect with, and not everything is for everyone, and just kind of knowing what boxes go where, so to
Yeah.
speak, of, I could share this with so and so, and I could share this with so and so, but not this person, and just it doesn't make them bad or good. It just means,
Right.
everyone has different views of things. I mean, Dee and I, we like honestly, when we're on the phone and we're not recording, we talk about all this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
We're constantly talking about extraterrestrials and aliens and spirituality and healing
Ghosts and
energy and
everything.
I mean, we're big believers in this stuff, like huge believers. Trust me, you're in a
I'm in good
You're in
company.
good
Yeah.
weird
you're with
company.
like-minded people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
feels so good. And that is so healing, right? It's so healing for us to be connected to each other and to have that emotional safety with each other and to know that like I can be weird. I can talk about the weirdest things ever and be totally safe in this space. And that's what you want. You don't want to spend your energy with people who are not ready to receive that, because the feedback that you're going to get from that is not going to feel good. And then that is going to affect the energy that you put into other places, that you put into things that you really care about and are in the ways in which you're trying to help the world. So
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Actually, I really can relate to when you first started out and you said that, when you were little, you never felt like you quite fit in anywhere. You found it really hard to fit into a certain type of box. And I could really relate to that because I was like that when I was young. I would find myself looking up to the stars all the time. and like going to school and like seeing all these little cliques and realize I'm like, I always have this feeling of like, I don't belong here. Like which one of these? And I like, but
Yeah.
I did not feel like I belonged anywhere. I didn't fit into any box. I had a very hard time, even in my 20s and in my 30s, with jobs because I
Yeah.
was like, no, like I'm not passionate about this. I don't feel like I belong here. I don't think like most people. I'm an out of the box thinker to begin with. I'm very creative and all these things. So I always felt that way. And I always would find myself looking up at the stars at night and going, I know, like, I don't belong, like I don't belong here, and I've tried to astral project. I've done the research, like I've listened and read the books and listened to shows, and it is very difficult to do, to try and like, because they teach you all these techniques, the rope technique, and then like rolling out of your body, I'm not there yet by any means. But the intention of is there. Like I would love to experience these things. And I think it's so beautiful that you had, even if accidentally, you had these experiences, not only astral projecting, but seeing ETs and all this stuff. Did you ever kind of figure out though what they were doing like to your head? Like did you ever kind of have an inner knowingness of what they were trying to accomplish or do? Or
No, I really don't know for sure. I did do a QHHT session once. That's like the quantum healing. I can never remember what it stands for, but it's like a past life regression session. And that was part of my questions, was about the extraterrestrials and how it's connected. And part of my past life experience, that I was walked through in this session, was me being some kind of I don't know. I was a man in most of my past lives. I have more masculine energy than I have feminine energy. And part of my role in this past life was I was like some kind of in-between person, some kind of person to help communicate between the extraterrestrials and the humans. So I picked up that clue, like some kind of ambassador or something. I also picked up on, what was something else that came through? No, I've totally forgot. But in the session, it kind of just was like they were making me aware that it was like in preparation for something. Now I don't know, and I haven't had any like, I have no idea what that means. I still have like a logical, skeptical brain, so I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that means. But I don't know, some kind of way to help me. Oh, I think I did ask a question. And the answer had something to do with, it was helping me to be more, I don't know what the word is, like receptive, or to be more prepared, or to be more ready for things that maybe like a normal human person would not be ready for, would not be able to accept, or would not be able to see. So it was something that sort of just helped me integrate faster, if that makes sense, is what I got through in my session. But I don't know what that means. So we'll see.
wow, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right, come down and do it to me too.
Dawne wants experiences so much.
I talk about it all the time. Like I'm constantly telling Dee, I'm like, please let them abduct me. Like, please. And I already know I can't like hopefully create alien babies, because like I don't have like, I can't do these kids anymore. So I know I'm not useful for that. But just the experience, just take me up and show me around. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun to think about, and I totally relate. And it's just, I've had to realize too, like in my own life, part of it was like just this desire to like escape. It's like this desire to escape, because what we experience here on Earth is really hard. Like we're going through a lot of really hard things, and it's, so there's that human desire, like, just take me away from here. And I think that's like what everybody's fascination is right now that there is more disclosure, and all of a sudden, aliens are real, and people aren't being so weird about it the way that they were before. People have this desire to like, we don't want to go through this anymore, take us away. And just try to remember, I try to have to remind myself, Like, we are here on this planet for a reason, and we have a purpose, and to keep listening and trusting to whatever experiences you have or don't have, and making like our experience here as good as possible. Yeah, like I try to remind myself, I don't want to escape. I want to learn, and I want them to help me make my experience here better.
Right. Just to visit.
Yes.
So I'll just come back
Give
with
me a
some
visit.
extra knowledge.
Give me some,
apply.
we have a conversation.
Exactly. It's not, I don't think anybody wants to escape. So it's like, okay, but most people, I would hope, they know deep down and even intuitively, it's like, we cannot be alone. Like, we cannot be the only beings in this entire galaxy, universe, plane, whatever you want to call it, because there's multiple of everything. Like, there's no way. And how cool would it be to communicate with extraterrestrials that are far more advanced than humans are, but bring back that knowledge to help our own species out. I mean, I believe too, like, all these clues left on Earth for millions of years. I mean, the Earth has been destroyed and rebuilt, and you hear it throughout history, and there's no way. If you look at some of these things like the pyramids and you look at all these things, it's like, there's no way that they had to have help. There's stories of gods coming down with fiery things, and humans didn't know how to express what they were seeing in the skies. Like, I think extraterrestrials live on Earth in places that humans can't even get to. I think they're among us, and they're helping human mankind. I mean, the planet's what? We're 15,000 years old, supposedly, in this generation, and the way humans have evolved. Like, we needed help. You just can't go from like Darwin's theory to now, like, oh, like, we can astral project now. Like, there's lost history here. There's lost, there's humans are like under this amnesia, like, we forgot. So why not embrace other worlds to help us remember who we are and what we truly have?
Yeah, it's so true. There's no way that we're alone. There's no way that we have done this alone. There's no way, like, I think it's so arrogant for people to be like, well, this is how it is, and these are the rules, and this is how you're supposed to be, and like, what I believe is true and what you believe is wrong. Like, I don't care what you believe in. You have to leave room for interpretation. You have to leave room for something that you're not aware of yet. You have to leave room for magic and weirdness and things that you never could have possibly ever imagined happened in the history of humankind. There is so much that we don't know or don't understand. And so I'm just open to that. I am open to what I don't know. I'm here to listen and to discern for myself, what the truth is.
Yeah.
And also have a level of respect for others too. Like, viewpoints of, like, if you don't agree, then it's okay to agree to disagree, but have that level of respect and compassion in the relationship too, and not be so divided. I think that's what people are missing. That piece people are missing big time too.
Exactly.
Yeah. And one thing,
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're very excited about it. I get it. It's very cool stuff. It really is. I was just gonna say that, there is a huge level of weirdness here, and there are a lot of people who are uncomfortable with that, because a lot of people still look at this stuff as woo-woo, which is quite hilarious to me, because there's so much scientific evidence that backs this stuff up. And when you really get into listening to some of these scientists talk about this stuff, they take it even more woo-woo, except they're scientifically proving it.
Right.
So,
Except they know all the right terms and the measurements and the scientific, like, understanding. But like, I always, like, I've been saying for the last 5 years, woo and science are the same thing. We just have we've only got some of it figured out, and we've got a lot figured out, and we are working on figuring it out more. But everything that was created scientifically. It just was created, with an incredible mind that we aren't fully conscious of yet. So yeah, like everything that is created is scientific. It all has a scientific explanation. We just haven't put all the dots together yet, but we've put a lot. I mean, it's pretty overwhelming. So
Yeah, it is overwhelming. They've put so much stuff together, and it's really fun. What scientists do you like to listen to that talk about these things?
I, you know, I just love Dr. Joe Dispenza. Like I'm really fascinated with his, his story of healing and recovery, and the fact that he does these workshops, and he puts a lot of energy into like mapping the brain waves and what's happening when people are in like these altered states, and how that can lead to healing and transformation. So he's the one whose books and stuff that I've read. And I don't know that he qualifies as a scientist, but he
He
has
is.
a very scientific approach.
Yeah. Oh, he's a neuroscientist now. He didn't start out that way. He started out as
right.
a chiropractor, but yeah, I followed
That's right.
Dr. Joe too. So, but I also really
Me
enjoyed
too.
Dr. Bruce Lipton and
Yes.
Dr.
Yep.
Greg Braden. And actually, there's some
Yeah.
videos on YouTube of those three together called the Three Amigos. So if y'all want to listen to them together, you could check out
Oh,
YouTube
cool. I
and
didn't know
go
that.
to the Three
Cool.
Amigos. Yeah. And it's so funny because until I encountered these guys, I had no idea I was such a science geek. But girl, let me just tell you, the science videos that I have listened to on YouTube would just astound you. Like
I
I'm
love that.
like a junkie about it now. Like I really love listening to it. And there's a show, I think it might still be on Netflix, called The Ancient Apocalypse that I
Yes,
actually
it's still on
heard about.
there.
Yeah, that I actually heard
That's a good
about
one.
listening to Greg Braden one day. And I watched it, and it's completely fascinating. And what's so interesting is there's science that shows exactly what is in these places that they visit during this series. And some of the scientists won't even acknowledge the scientific evidence that has been found in these places. And it's so just amazing to me that even the scientists are like, no, I can't believe that. And their mind just shuts down. They just won't
Yeah,
accept
that's
it.
Their
fascinating.
ego.
But
Their ego gets killed.
exactly.
They do.
That's what it draws back to. It's like you can't admit you were wrong, or you didn't have all the facts at the
Yeah.
time.
Well,
It's
we're
just
Like a
missing
spade is a
information.
spade is a spade.
Yeah, we're constantly learning. So I don't look at it as much of a we were wrong before as we had this information before, and now we're being more information is being brought to light because we are constantly growing our education, and our devices of measurement and things like that are growing, and our ability to just get to the information is so much more profound than it used to be. So I think it's fascinating. I'm like I said,
Yeah,
I'm
we're
a
just
huge
expanding and creating more connections between our neurons. Like that's all that's happening.
yes.
Exactly.
Neurons that fire
I love
together,
it.
wire together, right? That's a
Yeah,
famous Joe Dispenza saying.
that's right.
Absolutely. Well, Ashley, we have really enjoyed having you on today. I hope that and I'm confident that our viewers have found this information exciting and helpful, and I appreciate that you have created a safe space for us weirdos to congregate and explore and talk about these topics that are not so comfortable for everyone. So we'll let you tell people where they can find you, and then we will link you in the description below this video.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it so much. Thank you for letting me be my weird self and connect with other weird people. It means everything.
Yeah,
Pleasure to have you here. This was awesome. We need to do this again for sure.
yes.
Yes,
Touch on some other
absolutely.
weird things. So,
Yeah, definitely. There's so
you-
many.
yes, absolutely. There are lots of lovely weird things to talk about.
Yeah.
So you have a quote for us to end our podcast with today?
Oh, yes. I picked this quote even though it's mine because it was the thing that I came up with in the very beginning of my coaching business to help keep me motivated, because it's really hard to like do the inner work. So it is, if you are too busy to do the inner work, you are too busy to create the life and business of your dreams. So
Oh,
always do the inner work. Always know that work is what leads to external results.
Absolutely. That's
That's
powerful.
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Ashley, so much. And guys, don't forget to like and subscribe to our videos. We're putting out content every week. We're going to have fascinating guests on our podcast. Just like Ashley, there's more beautiful things to come. We appreciate all the time that you've spent with us today, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Love y'all.